Bruce Frederick Joseph Springsteen was born at Monmouth Medical Center, in Long Beach, New Jersey, on September 23, 1949. He is of Dutch, Irish, and Italian descent. He spent his childhood in Freehold, New Jersey, where he lived on South Street. His father, Douglas Frederick Dutch Springsteen (1924–1998), worked as a bus driver and held other jobs. Douglas Springsteen suffered from mental health issues throughout his life which worsened in his later years. Springsteen's mother, Adele Ann née Zerilli, 1925, was originally from the Bay Ridge neighborhood in Brooklyn, worked as a legal secretary, and was the main breadwinner in Springsteen's family. Springsteen has two younger sisters named Virginia and Pamela. The latter had a brief acting career, but left to pursue photography full-time. She later took photos for his albums Human Touch, Lucky Town, and The Ghost of Tom Joad. Springsteen's Italian maternal grandfather was born in Vico Equense. He emigrated through Ellis Island, and could not read or write when he arrived. He eventually became a lawyer, and impressed the young Springsteen as being larger than life. Springsteen's last name is topographic and of Dutch origin, literally translating to jumping stone, but more generally meaning a kind of stone used as a stepping stone in unpaved streets or between two houses. The Springsteens were among the early Dutch families who settled in the colony of New Netherland in the 1600s. Raised a Catholic, Springsteen attended the St. Rose of Lima Catholic School in Freehold, where he was at odds with the nuns and rejected the strictures imposed upon him, even though some of his later music reflects a Catholic ethos and includes a few rock-influenced, traditional Irish Catholic hymns. In a 2012 interview, he explained that it was his Catholic upbringing rather than political ideology that most influenced his music. He noted in the interview that his faith had given him a very active spiritual life, but joked that this made it very difficult sexually. He added, "Once a Catholic, always a Catholic." He grew up hearing fellow New Jersey singer Frank Sinatra on the radio and became interested in being a musician himself when, in 1956 and 1957, at the age of 7, he saw Elvis Presley on The Ed Sullivan Show. Soon after, his mother rented him a guitar from Mike Deal's Music in Freehold for $6 a week, but it failed to provide him with the instant gratification he desired. In 9th grade, Springsteen began attending the public Freehold High School, but did not fit in there either. Former teachers have said he was a loner who wanted nothing more than to play his guitar. He graduated in 1967, but felt like such an outsider that he skipped the ceremony. He briefly attended Ocean County College, but dropped out. Called for conscription in the U.S. Army when he was 19, Springsteen failed the physical examination and did not serve in the Vietnam War. He had suffered a concussion in a motorcycle accident when he was 17, and this, together with his crazy behavior at induction, made him unacceptable for service. Springsteen was signed to Columbia Records in 1972 by Clive Davis, after having initially piqued the interest of John Hammond, who had signed Bob Dylan to the same label a decade earlier. Despite the expectations of Columbia Records executives that Springsteen would record an acoustic album, he brought many of his New Jersey-based colleagues into the studio with him, thus forming the E Street Band, although it would not be formally named for several months. His debut album Greetings from Asbury Park, N.J., released in January 1973, established him as a critical favorite, though sales were slow.
You're a New Jersey boy as well, eh?
Yeah. I was born in Boston, but I grew up in New Jersey, yeah.
So how did the two of you meet?
Oh, we had local bands. You know, he was at a Freehold, which was a bit further west, and I was closer to the ocean. And there was a bit of a circuit that everybody played, you know. And you'd run into each other. And then we started running into each other in New York, which was odd at the time.
You used to come into Greenwich Village, didn't you?
Yeah, on the weekends.
What, to see musicians? Or?
Yeah, because New York was usually about a year or so ahead of New Jersey. You know. And so we'd come in and steal what we could and go back and look brilliant.
When we met, this girl introduced me to him, who was a singer in the band I was in. And actually she said, come on, he's playing down the street, and we can go down here and meet him tonight. And so I went down there, a place called the Student Prince.
Is this in Asbury Park?
In Asbury Park, yeah. It's no longer there. But I opened the door, and the wind blew the door down the street. It's a fact.
He came in the club, and he just walked up to the stage, and he said, can I play? And I said, sure, you know. Nobody was going to tell him no, you know. And he got up on stage and just knocked us out.
I get the thrill right now thinking about it. You know, I feel it, inside me. You know, that first night, the magic of that moment. And when I saw this guy, you know, I knew that there was something special about him. You know, I knew that he had what it takes, quote. And it was what I was looking for, you know.
I was with our old drummer, Vinny Lopez, and we were sort of we thought we were pretty hot in those days. We'd sort of go check out all the new talent in the area. We heard about this fellow, and we went to check him out. And we turned our chairs around and sat with our arms up there, and he blew us away. He was just he was unbelievable then, and I had never seen anything like him. I thought he was hidden away, like he was from England, or I had never heard of him, but he looked like a celebrity.
Well, I answered an ad in a New York newspaper in August of 1974. It said, "Wanted drummer." I went down and played with him, and I'll tell you, from the first beat, it was like magic. Just fell together.
He had just broken up Steel Mill, which was like a four-piece Led Zeppelin-based kind of band, and wanted to expand the band and go into a little more R&B direction. And at that point, they disbanded, and he wanted to start a new band. And I came in. I was working with Dave Sanchez in another band, and we sort of came in together, and that was the story.
On one of Bruce's tours before, I think Born to Run really broke big, at the Bottom Line in New York City, I got, for the first time, had a chance to see Bruce play. And it was his last night at a famous stand at the Bottom Line in New York City. And I was playing the next night. It was my first show as a solo artist. My band Green had broken up, so I was like petrified already. And I went to see Bruce just to kind of be inspired, which I certainly was. But it was just so overwhelming because, you know, the whole band and two keyboards and this little tiny club and doing this 4-hour show, and they did 2 shows. And as much as I loved it, halfway through the second show, I was so, like, you know, wrapped up in how great it was and so worried about my show and kind of inspired and overwhelmed at the same time. I left and went back to my hotel and just worked out all night, did sit-ups and all the kinds of exercise just to kind of wind down enough to, like, be grounded enough to do my show the following night. I was really knocked out.
I had seen him at Max's Kansas City here in New York, where he was playing for a few nights, and it so happened that the people I was working with at that time, we were also playing the same club. We were alternating sets. So I watched him for 3 nights and got real excited about him. And of course I noticed he had a great piano player at the time, who was Davey. And I said, boy, this is a band I would just love to play with. And it so happened that about 8 months later, I'd been living up in Boston. I moved back to New York City, and I picked up the Village Voice one day and read the music ads. And there was an ad for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band piano player and drummer wanted. So I reached for the phone, made the call, and I went down and auditioned.
First time I saw Bruce, he was opening up for Jethro Tull, Monmouth College, before he had a record deal. But I'd always heard of him because when
Sorry, did you go to see Jethro Tull, or did you go to see Bruce Springsteen?
He doesn't know this. I went to see him. I went to see Jethro Tull because I liked him at the time. But I also went to see Bruce because I was singing in that area, you know, in different bands. And I wanted to get in a good rock band, and I knew he had the best rock band.
Yeah, so they were the kind of ace team, were they, in the area?
Oh, yeah, always. Always.
Bruce, there seems to be quite a change going on with you. I mean, for one, you've never given interviews before, and now suddenly you're quite agreeable to talking. What's up?
I didn't want an instant replay of, you know, my Born to Run release, you know. And so initially I thought, well, I'm not gonna do any interviews right now. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna lay low and let the record come out and stuff, you know. And I just realized a lot of things had changed since 75, I guess, 1975. And, you know, slowly, I guess over the past month or so, I took a different attitude towards I guess, promoting your record, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's what it boils down
like,
to,
you know, which is something that, like, you know, it was something that, like, what? Promote my record? I can't do that.
Did you think it was kind of like selling your own stuff, like kind of promoting is almost like selling, maybe?
Yeah, well, it is. That's what you do, you know. It's like, you know, that's what you do. I chased very aggressively after what I was trying to get in the studio, and I worked real hard on it, and I believed in it a lot. And for some reason, you know, I was, I guess, it dawned on me that it was silly to do that. I mean, the records ain't gonna, like, sprout legs and walk out stores and jump on to people's record players and say, listen to me, you know? It's like...
There's a lot of records out there.
You know, and I said, here it is. I worked a year on this thing, and I put everything I had into it. Now I want it to get out there. I want it to get heard. I wanna get as many people, you know, listening to it as possible, you know. And an audience is something that, you know, you don't inherit an audience, and they don't run over to your door and you know, knock on your door and sit in your lap, you know. I think you gotta go out and you gotta say, you know, hey, I here's what I think, I believe this, and give people a chance to hear it and make up their minds, you know. I was a little wary, first of all, of you know, I was afraid of the Born to Run thing, you know.
By that you mean all the publicity and all the press and all the...
Well, what it is I didn't have it in perspective, you know. I didn't know what had frightened me about that and what had not. And so I bunched everything into something I just called, like, you know, the Born to Run, you know, experience or whatever it was, you know.
Have you been able to separate from that what it was that frightened you about it?
Yeah, since then, you know, like what frightened me about it was I started to play to get as much control of my life as I could, and that's what I felt slipping away, and that's what scared me, you know. Mm-hmm. And I was real naive about it at the time, and because we'd blown through 3 or 4 years of playing. We had albums out, and you know, the money came in, the money went out, and I was doing what I always wanted to do with my life. I was traveling around, and I felt, you know, really good. And I just...
You mean that you become not only Bruce Springsteen the person, but Bruce Springsteen the product?
Well, yeah, the whole thing, you know. It's like to ignore that fact or to is just stupid, you know. And it's just what it is. It's not real. It's not, you know. And I spent a lot of time ignoring that, you know, for quite a while, because not even intentional, because it never connected to me that way, you know. It was like I was living out certain, you know, my rock and roll dream there, you know.
Fantasies.
It was something that once I found, you know, once I got in that position of where all of a sudden, hey, look, there's more money than we can spend, you know. What happens is then come the distractions, you know. Then they're like, hey, what do you want? Do you want this? Do you want that? Hey, you can have this. You want a car? Do you want a limousine? Whatever, you know, all the standard distractions that
things that happen when you get to be rich and famous.
You know, that like, you know, that come down the line to take your mind off or to distract you from what is real and from what your initial motivations, you know, your the things you started out for. But I always had it in my head. I always knew what I was doing there, because I knew when I was losing it. I knew when it was slipping away, you know. Like I knew why I started, and I knew when it was slipping away, and I got scared by it, you know.
Well, let me get something specific from here. What is it you wanted to do when you started?
You know, it's easy to wander. A lot of people wander. You wander through their lives. You're bouncing off walls. You're bouncing off people. You're bouncing off different jobs, and you end up 55, and you never found something that you wanted to do. Initially I was 9, you know, and I saw my mother was an Elvis Presley fan, and she had him on the TV, and she used to listen to him on the radio, like every morning in my house. You know, come down before you go to school. My mother's, you know, cooking up the breakfast. She's got the radio on top of the refrigerator. You know, tuned to the AM station, and ever since I could remember, you know. And so something connected then, but I was a little young. I didn't have the discipline or something to stick with it, you know. And then when I was 13, and when the English thing happened, the Beatles and the Animals and the Rolling Stones,
Dave Clark,
that really kicked it off for me. I said, well, that looks like something that's good to get into, you know. And the point was, once again, it was to have some say in the way you're going to live, you know, and the way the thing you're going to do. And for the first time that in a long time was during the Born to Run thing that I felt that slipping away. You know, I felt, you know, the old gas pedal stuck to the floor, you know, in a runaway car.
People were running you, and you weren't running your own life anymore.
Yeah, you know, it was like, and I was lucky enough to realize it, and you know, and grind it to a halt. And there's a moment where, like, I guess assessed my strengths and my weaknesses, you know. And I'm glad it happened, you know. I'm like, I ain't got one regret about you know, 1 second of the past 3 years, you know, because I learned a lot from it.
So Darkness on the Edge of Town is a real new beginning for you. It's a whole chain. It's just a whole new beginning, because you got a whole new perspective on yourself and your life.
It's a continuation, actually. It's, you know, and I think that it's in the record, you know, stuff. You can hear it on the record. I hope, you know. And it was just something where I just learned a lot of stuff.
Would it be right for me? Would it be right for me to say, because what I'm getting from you is that the album Darkness is, even though it's your 4th album, that you feel emotionally attached to it, and you have a lot of yourself invested in it, more than even the first 3, that it's a real important step in your life, this record. I'm kind of picking that up from. And it brings me around to talking about certain things about the making of Darkness on the Edge of Town and about some of the stuff on it. First thing that I'm wondering about is how did you and John Landau first get together? John co-produced the album with you.
I met John in Boston at a place called Charlie's Place. I think it was in Harvard Square. It's not there anymore. He came down. I remember I was standing outside. I think it was in the wintertime, and I was standing out there freezing cold. And he'd written a review of Wild and the Innocent. And they had it in the window, I guess to get people to come in, or and watched it. I read it, and he walked up to me as I was reading and said, I wrote that, this John Landau. I said, how you doing? And came in and saw the show. And
that's the review that had the famous line that...
No, that wasn't the famous line.
That's not famous, I saw the future line.
No, which is a funny thing about that line, it's like... Which is
just let me just say the line for the benefit of the people listening. The line we're talking, the famous line that they used in ads and stuff, is John Landau's line, I saw the future of rock and roll, and its name is Bruce Springsteen. Now tell me about the line.
It was like, the funny thing that was about that line, I don't know I guess most people never read the article that it came from,
right.
And if they had read the article, it was not saying exactly what it seemed to say, when it was used in the ad. And I believe it was only run in one ad, but it was picked up so fast, because as soon as I saw it, I said, uh-oh, this looks like trouble to me. It was good intentions intended, but it was like a kiss of death, sort of. And the article actually, which is the article that he wrote at the time, and it still means a lot to me, was he saw a show and was writing about it, and I think what he was actually saying was that the music that we were playing, me and the band, was a compilation of a lot of things, not just, past influences and present, but also,
your own.
Future. Yeah. I think that was the intention of the line, but it was like, I guess somebody at the ad department, said, this is it, and it went out,
Advertising people always looking for little catchphrases.
Oh yeah, that's I guess that's their job,
Anyway, he came up to you and he said, I wrote that article.
Yeah, and I said, hey, how you doing? And he came in and sat down and we played, and then I didn't see him, and he was sick for a while, and he went in the hospital, and we made Born to Run, me and Mike Appel, and produced it, and I sent him a tape, when he was in the hospital. And I called him. I think I called him on the phone. And he said, gee whiz, first time I heard it, he says, it just sounded like a bunch of noise, But after I listened to it for a while, I could hear what was going on there. And somehow, he came back to New York and we got together, and I was having problems creatively in the studio. I just was having a hard time making records. It was a long time in between The Wild and Innocent and Born to Run. I don't know if you remember, it was like 2 years, I think. So I was having a hard time making records. We were all, we're all a bunch of amateurs, We basically, it's like, even still, there's not that much experience between, between us is like, and we came up against some problems that we couldn't solve, and I talked to John, and he had some answers, and he was I just saw him as being another key to me being able to go on and do what I wanted to do, Eventually, he came in and co-produced Born to Run. He was a big he opened a lot of doors for me because he was different than me, and he was somebody who had been exposed to different things than I had when I grew up, you know, it's like we used to joke around, you know, it's say when my school was like put down was, what are you, some kind of smart guy? He said, and his school put down was, what are you, some kind of, you know, hick, you know, some kind of dumb, you know. And so he exposed me to things that I hadn't been exposed to before.
So you started hanging around a lot together, going to the movies, rapping, just hanging out and stuff.
Oh yeah, sure. He's like, you know, I spent a lot of time with him. Well, then we made the record. I spent a lot of time with him, I guess for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, you know. Anyway, again, you know, I spent quite a bit of time then, and then he came in and broke down a lot of the barriers to some of the problems we were having. And
could you be more specific, like what, like a problem?
There was a million little things, like the right piano, the right studio,
and arrangements and sound, getting the sound that you wanted, and
the sound, like I knew what sound I wanted, you know. It was like I was having some difficulty getting it, you know. I mean, you're trying to make something that is a non-physical thing. You're trying to make it physical. You're trying to make it, you know,
you got
real.
something in your head and you try to get it on a piece of
right, you
vinyl,
know.
right?
And so I knew what I wanted, and that's how come I knew I wasn't getting it, and I knew I wasn't, you know, having the problems. And he just said, well, we could use a better studio, we could use a better this, we could use, you know, different things, certain technical problems, and then also certain, you just have different perceptions of things, like try this tone on the guitar, or, you know, various small things that when it all came together was a big contribution to put the thing over the hill, you know.
Is that one of the reasons why it took so much time?
Born to Run, it didn't take that long, actually. Born to Run, the album was recorded in about four months.
I think the first release date on Darkness on the Edge of Town was somewhere around
about 2 years ago.
October 77, I think. Columbia wanted it out for Christmas or something like that, and we finally got it, I don't know, a year and a half later or something.
Yeah, it always, well, I had an idea, and I knew what, you know, and I was just going after it, you know. And I don't think there's you know, if you can go in and do it in 2 weeks, great, you know. And, you know, if you go in and if it takes a year, if it takes 6 months, it's your own shirt, you know. So you might as well do what you want to do.
And you feel real good about the way this one's come out, I take it.
Yeah, I like it. You know, I like it, which is always a hard thing to do. It's hard to, I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, that I would do differently, and I hear differently now, but in general, I think it's an honest record, and that's basically what I was trying to make.
I think it's a great record, for whatever that's worth.
Well, that's good.
The Born in the USA period represented the height of Springsteen's visibility in popular culture and the broadest audience he would ever reach, aided by the release of Arthur Baker's dance mixes of 3 of the singles. From June 15 to August 10, 1985, all 7 of his albums appeared on the UK Albums Chart, the first time an artist had charted their entire back catalogue simultaneously. Live, 1975-85, a 5-record box set, also on 3 cassettes or 3 CDs, was released near the end of 1986 and became the first box set to debut at number 1 on the US album charts. It is one of the most commercially successful live albums of all time, ultimately selling 13 million units in the US during the 1980s. Several Springsteen fanzines were launched, including Backstreet's magazine. Springsteen released the much more sedate and contemplative Tunnel of Love album in 1987. The album is a mature reflection on the many faces of love found, lost and squandered, which only selectively used the E Street Band. On July 19, 1988, Springsteen held a concert in East Germany that attracted 300,000 spectators. Journalist Eric Kirschbaum has called the concert the most important rock concert ever, anywhere, in his 2013 book Rocking the Wall. Bruce Springsteen, the Berlin concert that changed the world. It had been conceived by the Socialist Unity Party's youth wing in an attempt to placate the youth of East Germany, who were hungry for more freedom and the popular music of the West. However, it is Kirschbaum's opinion that the success of the concert catalyzed opposition to the regime in the DDR, and helped contribute to the fall of the Berlin Wall the following year. Later in 1988, Springsteen headlined the worldwide Human Rights Now tour for Amnesty International. In late 1989, he dissolved the E Street Band. Springsteen has been called a rock and roll poet who radiated working class authenticity. Often described as cinematic in their scope, Springsteen's lyrics frequently explore highly personal themes such as individual commitment, dissatisfaction and dismay with life in a context of everyday situations. Springsteen's themes include social and political commentary and are rooted in the struggles faced by his own family of origin. It has been recognized by whom? That there was a shift in Springsteen's lyrical approach starting with the album Darkness on the Edge of Town, in which he focused on the emotional struggles of working-class life, although he still sings about general rock and roll themes as well. While rejecting religion in his earlier years, Springsteen stated in his autobiography Born to Run, "I have a personal relationship with Jesus. I believe in his power to save, love but not to damn." In terms of his lapsed Catholicism, he has stated that he came to ruefully and bemusedly understand that once you're a Catholic you're always a Catholic. He elaborated, "I don't participate in my religion but I know somewhere, deep inside, I'm still on the team." Springsteen has spoken openly about his struggles with depression, which he accepted and began to face in his 30s. Around this time, frustrated with being an underweight fast food junkie, who would have to be helped off the stage after a show due to poor conditioning, he began running up to 6 miles on a treadmill and lifting weights 3 times a week. In September 2019, an article celebrating his 70th birthday revealed that he has maintained this same workout routine since he began following it. He has also reportedly followed a mostly vegetarian diet since around the same time, and has been noted for his lifelong avoidance of hard drugs. In a June 2017 interview with Tom Hanks, Springsteen admitted to having been a tax evader early in his career.
But part of the reason it took so long, I'm told, and cost so much money is that you did a lot more songs than you needed for an album. There are 10 songs on Darkness. 10?
Yeah, there was about 30 songs we did.
You did about 30?
Yeah, we did not finish, but like started, and some we have, some of them are finished, and some of them found their ways to other places. Fire, Robert Gordon did, and Because the Night, Patty did, and it was about 30 songs or 30 ideas that we recorded in the studio.
So which track was the hardest one to get down on the album?
Oh, let me think.
How about Badlands?
I guess maybe so. Maybe so. It was hard to sing.
It was hard to what?
It was hard to sing.
To sing?
Yeah, because what happens is like I sit down when I write, I play the music, because I usually write the music first. And then I think, oh, brother, now I gotta write words to, go with
the melody
this.
you just kind of start hearing.
Like with Badlands, I had the word. I had Badlands, and then I had chord changes, and we go in the studio and we laid the track down. And I had a, vague outline. And I'd go home and I'd play the tape, and I'd write the words. But I wouldn't do it out loud. I would write them in my head. So I'd go in the studio, and I would try to sing it, and I'd realize that what I'd written was like, it was hard to breathe and sing it all at once. So that was hard to sing. Some of the new songs are physically harder to play than some of the other ones. Born to Run was like that too, though, just because that's the sort of the way that I do it,
I got to talk to you about the band, but find out how you met these guys and your relationship with them, and all because the E Street Band is so much a part of Bruce Springsteen and the whole record and the show, and it's such a great rock and roll band. We'll talk about Danny first, because I think Danny Federici is the oldest member of the band, right?
Yeah, he's...
How did you guys get together?
How did I meet him? I met him, I remember, was in a place called the Upstage in Asbury Park. He was in a band that was, I think they were pretty hot at the time. I believe the name of the band was The Moment of Truth, Him and Vinny, Mad Dog. Mm-hmm. And I met Mad Dog, came up to me. He had his head was shaved bald. He'd been in jail or something, and he said, listen, I just got out of jail, but I got this band, and we need a guitar player, and, you want to, play. At the time, I said, sure.
What were you doing at the time?
I was freelancing on the guitar, sort of. I'd quit school, and I was just playing, and I was making money at this club Upstage, called Upstage. I'd make, anywhere from $5 to $25 a night, by just jamming.
But they wanted you to join their band, though. I mean, yeah. Danny and Mad Dog.
And Danny, I met Danny. I remember Danny's in a leather jacket, had his hair slicked back. I think he had his wife with him. And I met him, and I didn't remember because she had on a blonde wig. And the next time I met them both, I guess she had her dark hair. And that was at the first rehearsal, And it was me, and it was Danny, and it was Vinny, and who played the bass? This fella called Little Vinny. It was a smaller version, of Vinny. And
were you the singer in the band?
Yeah, at that time I was singing and playing,
And when did Garry show up?
Garry was funny because the first night I walked into this club, I was from 20 miles inland, I was from Freehold, and this place was on the shore, and it was very strict town lines and county lines. It was very strict, very different lifestyles every 10 and 20 miles,
I lived in Asbury Park for 10 years, so I know, if you're from Neptune, and it means you're not from Asbury Park, and if you're from England, then you're from another country.
Exactly, right. And I was, I had played north more on the coast, up around Red Bank and Seabright, mm-hmm. where there was the beach clubs, and there was more jobs there for us, which was tough to break in there because if you were from Freehold was I don't know what they thought.
Farmers.
People were. Yeah, it was like that, and Asbury, that was funny. Asbury is the only beach greaser town that You know, it was not like a collegiate kind of beach town at all. It was like Newark by the sea, you know.
Class people, right?
You know, and
Newark by the sea. That's great.
That's what, you know. That sort of was what it was like. And I went up at this club and I was started to play the first night, and this guy pulls a chair out, sits it right in the middle of the dance floor, sits down on it, and started giving me what I perceived as dirty looks, you know. And it was Garry, you know, and I didn't talk to him for quite a while after that. I assumed for one reason or another we weren't going to get along. And eventually, you know, we got together not for quite a while later. Garry didn't start playing with me till around 1971 maybe, or 70, somewhere in there. And because Miami Steve played bass before then. You know, he played bass we had a 4-piece band. It was me, Danny, Mad Dog, and when this fellow Little Vinny left, Steve played bass guitar.
Wait a minute now. I thought you got together with Miami Steve around 75. I thought when you did the Bottom Line, you introduced him as a new member of the band.
See, the thing is, all these people have gone in and out.
All right.
You know, it's like what happened was
revolving door.
We had a band, like Steve was like, he was in my band, but there was a ways before the record where like I had no band. You know, I just was at home writing songs. You know, we toured down south and stuff. And so at the time of the Greetings from Asbury Park, there was no formal band.
Is Miami Steve on Greetings from Asbury Park?
He is. I can't tell. I shouldn't tell you where.
Why not?
He might be mad at me. It's funny.
You know where, though. You know.
It's funny. But like, see, we had a band. Steve was a bass player. We split up, and Steve played with the Dovells and the Belmonts. I mean Dion. It wasn't the Belmonts at the time, you know. And he worked construction for a couple of years, you know. And but he actually didn't get in, I guess, the E Street Band until after the Born to Run album.
It was completed, right? How about Roy? Now, when did you get together with Roy? Roy Bitton, whose piano is, God, I mean, the way he's playing piano on this tour, and the sound of that piano and the thing is really beautiful. You know, it's gorgeous.
I put an ad in the Village Voice for a drummer and a piano player, and I auditioned 60 guys, 30 drummers and 30 piano players up at Studio Instrument Rentals in New York, and that's where I got Roy and Max. That's where I found Roy and Max.
Max said he showed up with one little snare drum and he said, Max just told me this afternoon. He said the guys came before him and they had big drum kits, and he said, gee, he was playing in the Broadway in the pit of Godspell, I think. And he said he came up, he had like 2 or 3 little drums with him, and other guys were showing up with these big drum kits, and you worked him out on his little drums there, and then you said to him, this is what he told me just at the pool this afternoon. He said, and I never thought I'd get the job, but finally Bruce said, listen, if you want the job, you can have it to pay $75 a week.
Oh, God.
And he said, I'll take it.
It's like, that's true. You know, what happened is at the time, that's what we were all making.
Right.
And this was when was this? This was right before Born to Run. You know, at the time we were
just a struggling band.
$75 a week, and he came up. He had the right feel, you know, and there's a lot of, you know, guys coming with the bigger drum sets, and I knew, you know.
And how about CC?
Oh, Clarence.
How about Clarence? Where'd you find the big man?
I was playing in Asbury Park in another club called the Student Prince, and it was me and Stephen and Garry and Davey Sanchez and Vinny Lopez. And one night, this guy walked in, and I'd heard about him, like he was. I'd heard about him in the area because I'd been looking for a saxophone player for a long time, and everybody was always talking about Clarence Clemons. And he walked in, and he said, "Can I sit in?" You know, and we said, "Sure." You know, nobody was gonna say no, and they got up, and we played this one song, and I said, "This is the guy who I've been looking for you all my life. You know, this is the guy who I've been looking for all my life, you know." And ever since then, you know, we stuck together, you know.
And that's the E Street Band.
Yeah, that's everybody, you know.
It all seems to me that you're having a terrific time. I mean, working, that you're just all really up and together, and there seems to be, even on stage, a lot of fun. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It looks like you're all having a lot of fun, which of course is the best way for it to look. Is the tour going that well? Are you really having a good time, or?
Yeah, it has been real good. You know, it's been the best tour we've ever done.
Springsteen has sold more than 135 million records worldwide and more than 64 million records in the United States, making him one of the world's best-selling artists. He has earned numerous awards for his work, including 20 Grammy Awards, 2 Golden Globes, an Academy Award, and a Tony Award for Springsteen on Broadway. Springsteen was inducted into both the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999, received the Kennedy Center Honors in 2009, was named Music Cares Person of the Year in 2013, and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama in 2016.